You know, it's kind of crazy to think about, but what if your smartphone, electric cars, and all the tech that's supposed to power our green future just vanished? Well, that world is a lot closer than you might think. And it all boils down to a handful of metals you've probably never even heard of. So today, let's pull back the curtain on the secret story of rare earth elements. So, what is the invisible thread, the secret ingredient that connects all of our most critical technologies? We're talking everything from national defense to clean energy. There's this hidden common denominator. All right, I want you to really think about this for a second. You've got a top-of-the-line fighter jet, a shiny new EV, and one of those massive offshore wind turbines. On the surface, they have absolutely nothing in common, but in reality, they are all completely dependent on the exact same thing. And the answer is a family of 17 metallic elements called rare earth elements, or REEs for short. And look, they aren't just minor components, they're the secret sauce. They're like the DNA that gives these technologies their superpowers. I mean, get this, an F-35 fighter jet is packed with over 400 kilograms of this stuff. Without it, it's just a very, very expensive paperweight. But here's the thing, the real story, the part that matters most, isn't about where these metals are buried. Nope. The critical strategic choke point is who has the power to turn that raw dirt into the ultra-pure materials our modern life actually runs on. And here's the first surprise for most people. The name rare earths is, well, totally misleading. They're not actually rare at all. They're found all over the planet. The real challenge, the bottleneck, is that they're super diluted and all mixed up together. Separating them is this incredibly complex, expensive, and frankly really dirty industrial process. And this right here is where the entire global power balance just completely shifts. Because while a bunch of countries can dig rare earth ore out of the ground, the ability to actually process it, to refine it into usable metals, is almost entirely concentrated in one single place. And believe me, this isn't just some boring supply chain issue. It's a massive geopolitical vulnerability. So, just how vulnerable are we? Well, China controls roughly 90% of the entire global capacity for separating and refining rare earths. Just let that number sink in. 90%. Nearly every advanced economy on Earth is depending on a single country for these foundational materials. And you know what? When we dig a little deeper, the picture gets even more intense. When it comes to the heavy rare earths, we're talking about elements like Dysprosium and Terbium, which are absolutely irreplaceable for high-performance magnets in things like missile guidance systems. China's monopoly is absolute, 100%. And of course, that control over processing flows directly into the next stage. Because China controls the refined metals, it also completely dominates the manufacturing of the most valuable final product, those high-performance permanent magnets. Today, China produces about 92% of the world's supply. Yeah, this table really just lays it all out, doesn't it? You can see the strategy as clear as day. China has systematically gone from just digging up ore to dominating the entire value chain. So while its share of mining is down around 69%, its stranglehold on processing, especially those heavy rare earths, gives it just incredible leverage over the world's most critical defense and technology sectors. Okay, so this dominance isn't just some theoretical risk we can ignore. Over the last 15 years or so, China has shown a very clear willingness to use its control over rare earths as a seriously potent tool of geopolitical power. This is the quiet conflict being fought right now, through our supply chains. This timeline really shows you the pattern, how it's escalated. It all kicked off back in 2010, when China cut off supplies to Japan. That sent absolute shockwaves through the global market. Prices for some of these elements spiked over 2,000%. And more recently, the strategy has gotten even more sophisticated. They're not just restricting the metals anymore. They're now banning the export of the processing technology itself, actively stopping other countries from even trying to build their own capacity. And look, there is zero ambiguity about what they're doing. If you think I'm being dramatic, just listen to this quote from China's official state press agency back in 2019. They laid it out in black and white. The message couldn't be clearer. Our control of these materials is a direct threat to your technological advantage. So, faced with this undeniable vulnerability, the rest of the world has, well, finally woken up. A global scramble is officially underway to build alternative, secure, and resilient supply chains, basically from scratch. And what's really fascinating here is the totally different approaches of two key allies.
You've got Japan, which was scarred by that 2010 embargo, and they've been playing the long game for over a decade, strategically investing to lock down the world's only non-Chinese supply of heavy rare earths. Then you have the US, which is in this much more urgent, almost frantic push, invoking the Defense Production Act and pouring billions into companies like MP Materials to build a domestic mine-to-magnet supply chain as fast as humanly possible.
And hey, this isn't just about individual countries trying to go it alone. A much bigger coalition is forming. You've got the Minerals Security Partnership, or MSP, which brings together 14 countries plus the EU to coordinate their investments. We're also seeing these powerful bilateral alliances, like the US and Australia committing over $3 billion. And new conversations are opening up with resource-rich nations like Brazil, which happens to hold the world's second largest rare earth reserves. So, as you can imagine, building these new supply chains from the ground up is a monumental task. It's filled with enormous challenges. But at the same time, it's sparking some incredible innovation and forcing a really important conversation about what a truly secure and sustainable supply chain should even look like. And this brings us to one of the great ironies of our time, the green paradox. The clean energy transition, which is our best hope for a sustainable future, currently relies on materials that are produced by an incredibly damaging and toxic process. For example, the Line S processing facility in Malaysia faced years of intense local opposition over its radioactive waste. This is exactly why new Western projects are making high environmental standards a core part of their strategy, pioneering things like closed-loop water recycling to prove that a cleaner, albeit more expensive alternative is actually possible. But wait, what about recycling? Urban mining? Well, it's a fantastic long-term idea, but this chart just shows how far we have to go. Right now, recycling supplies less than 1% of what we need. Now compare that to the projections showing demand for these magnet materials is set to nearly triple by 2035. So yeah, recycling is essential, but it is not going to solve this problem anytime soon. Of course, the real holy grail here is to innovate our way out of this mess entirely. And researchers are working on it. Everything from advanced materials like graphene to new magnet alloys that don't need rare earths at all. But we have to be realistic. These breakthroughs are still years, if not decades away from being commercially viable at the massive scale we would need. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question. This whole race for rare earths is speeding up the division of the global economy into two parallel competing supply chains, one centered on China and one aligned with the West. The cost of this decoupling is going to be immense. But for a lot of nations, the price of continuing to be dependent is seen as even higher. So the ultimate question really is security worth the cost of a more fragmented and contentious world?